The city looked beautiful from far away. Strings of lights hung over the roads, and shop windows glowed with red and gold decorations. People walked quickly, holding gift bags and warm drinks. Cars moved slowly through traffic, and Christmas songs played softly from open doors. But on one quiet side street, the holiday felt different. Mara sat near the corner of a closed bakery. The metal shutter was down, and a sign on the door said the shop would open after the holidays. The smell of bread was still trapped in the building, like a memory that refused to leave. Mara pulled her coat tighter, but it was too thin for this kind of cold. Her hands were red from the wind. One glove had a hole in the finger. She tried to hide her hands inside her sleeves, but the cold always found a way in. The street was mostly empty. Only the sound of wind and far-off traffic filled the air. Mara looked at the ground and tried not to think about what day it was. She already knew. Christmas Eve. It used to be her favorite night. A long time ago, she would make tea and put a small candle near the window. She would watch lights on the street and feel safe. Back then, she believed life could only move forward, and things would always improve. Now, the night felt like a reminder of what she had lost. A few people passed by. Some looked at her and quickly looked away. Some did not look at all. Mara did not blame them. People were busy. People were tired. People were afraid of getting involved. She had seen many kinds of faces over the years. The ones who avoided her eyes. The ones who stared like she was a strange thing in the street. The ones who gave a small coin and walked away fast, as if kindness needed to be done quietly. Mara did not ask for much anymore. She only wanted to get through the night. If she could find something warm to eat, that would be enough. She listened to the city around her. In the distance, someone laughed. Somewhere, a door opened and closed. A bus hissed at a stop, then pulled away. For a moment, everything felt normal and far away at the same time. Then the sound came. A motorcycle engine. It was louder than the traffic, louder than the wind. The sound rolled down the street and bounced off the buildings. Mara lifted her head. She watched the light of the bike sweep across the pavement as it turned into the quiet road. The motorcycle moved slowly, not racing, not showing off. Its chrome reflected the holiday lights like small sparks. The rider wore a black leather jacket. On the back was a large patch with wings. Mara felt her stomach tighten. She had heard stories about motorcycle clubs. People said those riders were trouble. People said they were dangerous. People said you should never speak to them. Mara stayed still. She did not have the energy to fear every story. She also did not have anywhere else to go. The motorcycle stopped near the bakery. The rider put his feet down and cut the engine. Suddenly the street felt even quieter than before, like the city was holding its breath. He removed his helmet. His hair was gray. His beard was thick and rough. His face looked like it had been shaped by sun, wind, and long roads. But his eyes did not look wild or angry. They looked tired. They looked like someone who had seen too much and learned to stay calm. He glanced at Mara, then at the empty street, then back at her again. "Cold night," he said. Mara nodded. She did not speak right away. She had learned that words could invite trouble. Sometimes it was better to stay quiet. The man did not step closer. He did not raise his voice. He simply stood there for a moment, as if deciding what to do next. Then he opened one of the bags on the side of his motorcycle. He pulled out a paper bag and a small container. Steam rose from the top, and the smell of warm food floated into the air. Mara's body reacted before her mind could. Her stomach tightened with hunger, and her throat felt dry. She tried to control her face, but she knew he could see it. "I got extra," the man said. "You want it?" Mara stared at the bag. Nothing in her life came without a cost. Not anymore. If someone offered something, it usually meant they wanted something back. She had learned that lesson more than once. Still, the smell was strong. The warmth in the air around the food felt like a small miracle. She swallowed and forced herself to speak. Why? The man blinked, surprised by the question. Then he shrugged. Because it's Christmas Eve, he said. And you look like you could use it. Mara studied him. She searched for a hidden meaning, a trick, a smile that did not reach the eyes. But he was not smiling at all. He looked serious, like feeding someone was a simple task that needed doing. Her hands moved slowly. She reached out. He handed her the paper bag without touching her. The heat traveled into her palms, and her fingers almost hurt from feeling something warm. For a moment, she could not move. She simply held the bag like it might vanish if she blinked. "Thank you," she said, her voice smaller than she wanted. The man nodded once. "Name's Ron." "Mara," she replied. Ron took a step back and looked around. He did not act like he owned the street. He acted like he was making sure no one bothered her. Mara opened the bag carefully. Inside was a sandwich wrapped in paper, still warm, and a small container of soup. The smell made her eyes sting. She did not cry. She had promised herself she would not cry in public anymore. But her throat tightened anyway. She took a bite of the sandwich. The bread was soft. The filling was simple but real. Warm. Fresh. Not something pulled from a trash bin or offered half-spoiled. It tasted like someone had bought it on purpose. Mara ate slowly, almost respectfully. She had learned to eat fast when she was outside, but this felt different. It felt like something she needed to honor. Ron stayed nearby, not too close, not too far. He leaned lightly against his motorcycle and watched the street. It was like he had decided she deserved a few minutes of peace. After a few bites, Mara looked up. "You didn't have to stop." Ron glanced at her. "Maybe I did." That answer surprised her. Mara wanted to ask what he meant, but she did not know how. Instead, she asked a smaller question. "Do you do this often?" Ron's eyes shifted toward the holiday lights. "Not as often as I should," he said. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small thermos. He poured something into the lid and set it on the ground a safe distance from her. "Hot tea," he said. "It helps." Mara stared at the tea, then at him. "Why are you being nice to me?" Ron looked at her for a long moment. His face did not soften in a fake way. It softened like someone remembering something. "Because someone was nice to me once," he said. "When I didn't deserve it." Mara did not know what to say. She took the lid of tea and held it carefully. The warmth rose toward her face. Ron reached back into his pocket and took out a small card. He placed it near the bag of food. "If you need help tomorrow," he said, "go to this place." Mara looked at the card. It had an address and a wing symbol printed on it. "What is it?" she asked. Ron paused, like he was choosing his words. "It's a garage," he said. "But not just for bikes. Some friends and I run a kitchen there. People can eat. Get a coat. Sit inside for a while. No questions." Mara's heart beat harder. She wanted to believe him. She also wanted to protect herself from hope. Ron put his helmet back on. "No pressure," he said. "Just an option." Then he started his motorcycle. The engine roared, loud in the quiet street. Ron lifted a hand, not like a wave for attention, but like a simple goodbye. Then he rode off, turning the corner and disappearing into the brighter part of the city. Mara sat there with warm food in her lap and a card in her hand. The street was still cold. The night was still long. Her problems did not disappear. But something had changed. For the first time in years, Mara looked at Christmas Eve and felt something other than emptiness. She felt a small, careful spark of possibility. Morning came slowly. The sky was gray, and the cold felt sharper than the night before. Mara woke up on the same street, near the closed bakery. Her body ached from sleeping on hard ground, and her fingers felt stiff. She sat up and rubbed her hands together, breathing warm air onto them. For a moment, she forgot about the night before. Then she felt the card in her coat pocket. She pulled it out and looked at it again. The paper was thick, not cheap. The wing symbol was simple, drawn in black. The address was written clearly. It did not look like a joke or a trick. Mara folded the card carefully and stood up. She did not know why, but she felt nervous. Hope made her nervous. Hope could hurt more than cold if it failed. She walked through the streets as the city woke up. Shops were still closed. A few people moved quickly, heading somewhere warm. Cars passed, their windows fogged from heaters inside. As she walked, memories tried to slow her down. Memories of places that promised help but only offered rules. Memories of people who spoke kindly but looked away when things became hard. When she reached the address, she stopped. The building was old but strong. A large door faced the street. Above it hung a hand-painted sign, Community Garage and Kitchen. Mara stood across the road, watching. Motorcycles were parked outside. Some were shiny, some were old. Men and women moved in and out of the building, carrying boxes and talking to each other. She felt out of place. Her coat was worn. Her shoes were cracked. She smelled like the street. She turned away. She took 3 steps, then stopped. Ron's face came back to her mind. Not his jacket. Not his bike. His eyes. Calm. Honest. Mara turned back. She crossed the street and walked toward the door. Before she could knock, it opened. Warm air rushed out, carrying the smell of coffee and food. The sound of voices filled the space. Not loud, but alive. Ron stood there, holding a box of bread. When he saw Mara, he paused. Then he smiled, not wide, not fake. Just enough. You came, he said. Mara nodded. I almost didn't. Ron stepped aside. Glad you did. Inside, the building felt nothing like a garage. Long tables were set up with food. People sat and ate, some alone, some talking quietly. A large pot steamed near the back. Coats hung on a rack near the wall. A heater hummed in the corner. No one stared at Mara. No one rushed her. A woman with short hair and kind eyes approached. Hi, she said. I'm Lena. You want something warm? Mara nodded again, afraid her voice might break. Lena handed her a bowl of soup and a piece of bread. Sit wherever you like. Mara found a seat near the wall. The chair felt solid. Safe. She wrapped her hands around the bowl and felt heat sink into her skin. She ate slowly. Every bite felt unreal. People moved around her, laughing softly, working together like this was normal. After eating, Mara helped clear bowls. No one asked her to. It felt natural, like the right thing to do. Ron came over while she washed dishes. How is it? He asked. It's real, Mara said. I thought it wouldn't be. Ron nodded. Most people do. As the morning passed, Mara learned more. The garage was run by Ron and his friends. They fixed motorcycles and cars for free when they could. They cooked meals every day. They gave out clothes. They helped people find places to stay. They did not ask why someone needed help. They only asked what they needed. Mara noticed a large board on the wall. Photos covered it. Faces smiling. Some holding keys. Some standing beside motorcycles. Some standing inside small homes. At the top of the board was a simple message. Once helped. Now helping. Mara stared at it for a long time. Lena noticed. That's our favorite wall, she said. Everyone here ends up on it someday. When they are ready. Mara swallowed. I don't know if I could ever help like that. Lena smiled gently. You already are. You washed dishes. Later, Ron sat with Mara at one of the tables. He poured coffee into 2 cups. You don't have to come back, he said. No one here expects anything. Mara looked at the cup. But I want to. Ron studied her. Why? Because last night, she said slowly, I felt like I didn't exist. Today, I feel seen. Ron did not answer right away. He nodded once, like he understood more than he said. Before Mara left, Lena handed her a small bag. Inside was a clean scarf, gloves, and a pair of thick socks. For the cold, Lena said. Mara stepped back outside into the winter air. The city felt different. Not warmer. Not kinder. But less heavy. She walked away from the garage with the bag under her arm. She did not know what the future held. But she knew one thing. She would come back tomorrow. And the day after that. Something had started, and it was bigger than a meal. It was the beginning of belonging. Mara returned the next day, and the day after that. Each morning, she walked to the community garage and kitchen before the sun fully rose. The cold still hurt her face, but now she had gloves that fit, socks that were warm, and a scarf that covered her neck. More than that, she had a place where the door opened without fear. Inside, the work moved like a calm rhythm. Someone stirred the soup. Someone sliced bread. Someone carried boxes of donated clothes from a back room. The sound of voices filled the space, steady and normal, like a home that welcomed many kinds of people. Mara did not talk much at first. She listened. She watched. She learned names. Lena was always busy, always smiling, and always aware of who needed what. Ron came and went, sometimes fixing bikes in the back, sometimes standing at the door, greeting people like he had been doing it his whole life. There were others too. A tall man named Sam who spoke softly and repaired engines with careful hands. A woman named Tia who organized clothing like it was an art. An older man named Bill who made jokes, even when the day was cold and long. Mara started helping without being asked. She washed dishes, wiped tables, and carried trash outside. It was small work, but it made her feel useful. It made her feel like she belonged in the room. One morning, Lena handed her a stack of clean towels. Can you put these near the sink? She asked. Mara nodded and did it right away. Later, Ron noticed her folding coats on the rack. You're fast, he said. Mara looked down, shy. I'm just trying not to be in the way. Ron shook his head. You're not in the way. You're part of it. Those words stayed with her. Around midday, when the crowd became smaller, Mara walked toward the photo wall again. She had looked at it many times, but she never felt ready to ask about it. Today, she stood closer. The photos were not perfect. Some were old and faded. Some were new and clear. But every face had something in common. Relief. A quiet kind of joy. Mara saw a picture of a young man holding a toolbox, smiling like he had won something bigger than money. Another photo showed a woman standing in front of a small apartment door, holding keys. A group photo showed several riders and volunteers handing out meals on a street corner. Mara reached out and touched the corner of one picture, careful not to damage it. A voice behind her spoke gently. That's Dan. Mara turned. It was Sam, the tall man who repaired engines. He was here 2 years ago, Sam continued. He came in hungry and scared. Ron gave him food. Lena gave him a coat. We gave him time. Mara stared at the photo. What happened to him? Sam smiled. He works here now. He teaches young people how to fix bikes. He's out back, probably covered in oil. Mara felt something warm in her chest. So people really change. Sam nodded. Yeah, when someone gives them a chance. Mara looked at the words at the top of the wall. Once helped. Now helping. She whispered, almost to herself. I want that. Sam heard her. He did not laugh. He did not doubt her. He simply said, then keep showing up. That same day, something unexpected happened. The front door opened, and a woman stepped inside. She wore a long coat and boots that looked too clean for this place. Her hair was neat, and her eyes moved across the room with worried focus. She did not look like someone coming for a meal. She looked like someone searching for something. Lena approached her. "Hi. Can we help you?" The woman held up a small photograph. "I'm looking for someone," she said, her voice tight. "Her name is Mara." Mara froze. She was standing near the sink with a towel in her hands. The towel slipped slightly, but she caught it before it fell. The woman walked forward, her eyes scanning faces. Mara's heart started to pound. She had not heard her name spoken like that in a long time. Not with purpose. Not with hope. Lena glanced toward Mara, then back at the woman. "Why are you looking for her?" The woman swallowed. "Because she's my sister." Mara felt the room tilt. For a moment, she could not breathe. Her mind fought to understand the words. Sister. Mara had not used that word in years. The woman stepped closer, holding the photo out. It was an old picture of Mara, younger and brighter, standing beside a small child. Mara's hands trembled as she stared at it. The woman's voice softened. "Mara, if you're here, please. I've been searching for you." Mara took a step forward without meaning to. Her legs moved on their own. Lena turned fully toward Mara now. "Mara," Lena said quietly, "is that you?" Mara's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her throat felt tight, like the cold had returned inside her. Ron appeared from the back of the room. He had grease on his hands, and his jacket was half open. He stopped when he saw the stranger, then noticed Mara's face. "What's going on?" Ron asked. Lena pointed gently. "She says she's Mara's sister." Ron looked at Mara, reading her expression. He did not push. He did not speak for her. He waited. Mara finally forced words out. "My sister's name is Helen," she said, her voice shaking. The woman's eyes widened. Tears filled them instantly. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'm Helen." Mara stepped closer, slow and careful, like she was afraid the moment might break. Helen reached out, and her hands trembled too. Then Helen pulled Mara into a hug. Mara's body stiffened at first. She had not been hugged in so long. The feeling was strange, almost painful. But then her arms moved, and she held on. Helen cried. "I thought I lost you," she said. Mara's eyes burned. She tried to speak, but only a broken sound escaped. Ron stepped back, giving them space. The room grew quiet, not in an awkward way, but in a respectful way. People looked away to give privacy. Someone quietly refilled the soup pot. After a long moment, Helen pulled back and looked at Mara's face like she was trying to memorize it. "I've been looking everywhere," she said. "I should have found you sooner." Mara shook her head slowly. "I didn't know where to go," she whispered. Helen held her hands. "You don't have to be alone anymore." Mara wanted to believe it. Part of her did believe it. Another part was afraid to trust happiness. But Helen's eyes were real. Her hands were warm. Her voice did not sound like pity. It sounded like love. Ron walked over quietly. "You found her," he said to Helen. Helen turned toward him. "You're the one," she said. "The one who helped her." Ron looked uncomfortable. "I just fed someone," he replied. Helen's voice became firm. "You did more than that. You saved time. You saved her." Ron did not answer. He only nodded once. Mara stood between them, breathing slowly, feeling something she had not felt in years. A future. And it all began on a cold Christmas Eve, with a paper bag of warm food and a card with wings. The days after the reunion felt unreal to Mara. Each morning, she woke up expecting the cold street and the hard ground. Instead, she opened her eyes to a small, warm room. Helen had insisted that Mara stay with her, at least for a while. The apartment was not large, but it was clean and quiet. A blanket rested neatly on the couch, and a lamp glowed softly at night. Mara moved carefully through the space, like someone afraid to disturb a dream. Helen gave her time. She did not ask too many questions. She did not push for explanations. She simply cooked meals, made tea, and listened when Mara chose to speak. Mara still returned to the community garage and kitchen every day. It felt important. It felt like a bridge between her past and her future. When she walked through the door now, people greeted her by name. Sam waved from the back room. Lena smiled and handed her an apron. Ron nodded and said hello like it was the most natural thing in the world. Mara worked harder than before. She cleaned, cooked, and organized supplies. She learned how to make large pots of soup and how to sort donations quickly. She listened to stories from people who came through the door. Some stayed for an hour. Some stayed for weeks. She understood them in a way others could not. One afternoon, Ron asked her to sit with him at a table near the back. "You don't have to be here every day," he said gently. "You've got your sister now." Mara shook her head. "This place gave me a start when I had nothing. I want to give something back." Ron watched her closely. "You already are." Over the next few weeks, Helen visited the garage often. She helped serve food and talked with Lena about finding longer-term housing for people who needed it. She learned about the work Ron and the others did, and she respected it deeply. One evening, Helen showed Mara an old box she had brought with her. Inside were photos, letters, and small objects from their past. "I kept these," Helen said. "I hoped one day I would give them back to you." Mara picked up a photo of herself holding a child. She felt a tight pain in her chest. "My son," she said quietly. Helen nodded. "I know. I never stopped thinking about him." Mara looked down. "I lost him when I lost everything else." Helen reached for her hand. "We cannot change the past. But we can honor it by living well now." Mara did not answer, but she held the photo for a long time. At the garage, a small change began to happen. People who came in started asking for Mara. Not because she had answers, but because she listened. She spoke softly. She never judged. One young woman arrived shaking from the cold and fear. Mara sat beside her and shared tea. Another man came in angry at the world. Mara listened until his voice slowed. Lena noticed. "You have a gift," Lena said one afternoon. "You make people feel safe." Mara shook her head. "I just understand." Lena smiled. "That is the gift." Ron decided to add a new photo to the wall. One morning, he called Mara over. "Stand there," he said, pointing to the wall. Mara froze. "No." Ron raised an eyebrow. "You've earned it." Helen stepped forward with a camera she had brought. "Please," she said. "For me." Mara stood still, nervous. She held a clean towel in her hands, the same way she always did while working. The camera clicked once. The photo went up later that day. Mara stared at it silently. She did not recognize the woman in the picture at first. The woman looked calm, strong, alive. Under the photo, Ron wrote one line. "Once helped. Now helping." Mara felt tears rise, but she did not hide them. Winter slowly moved forward. The days grew a little longer. The cold did not feel as sharp. Mara began talking with Helen about work, about learning new skills, about rebuilding life step by step. One evening, Helen sat across from her at the kitchen table. "I spoke with a community center," she said. "They need help in their kitchen. It is part-time. It is paid." Mara's heart jumped. "Me?" "Yes," Helen said. "They liked your story. And your experience." Mara looked down at her hands. "What if I fail?" Helen leaned forward. "Then you try again. You are not alone anymore." The first day at the community center felt like stepping into a new world. Mara wore clean clothes and walked in with nervous steps. The kitchen smelled like onions and bread. The manager showed her around and introduced her to the team. Mara worked slowly at first, careful not to make mistakes. But by the end of the day, her body remembered what it meant to work with purpose. She returned to the garage that evening with tired legs and a full heart. Ron listened quietly as she told him. When she finished, he nodded. "Proud of you," he said. Mara smiled. "I learned from you." Ron shook his head. "You learned from yourself. I just stopped my bike." That night, Mara stood outside the garage, looking at the lights inside. She thought about the street near the bakery. She thought about the cold ground and the long nights. Her life was not perfect now. She still carried pain. She still had fear. But she also had direction. And that made all the difference. She took a deep breath and walked forward, ready for what came next. A full year passed, one day at a time. The city changed its clothes again. Summer heat came and left. Rainy days washed the streets clean. Then winter returned, bringing cold wind and early nights. Holiday lights appeared on buildings, and the same songs returned to shop speakers. This time, the season did not feel like a punishment to Mara. It felt like a marker. A reminder of where she had been and how far she had come. Mara now lived in a small apartment of her own. It was not fancy, but it was hers. The walls were plain, the furniture simple, and the kitchen small. Still, she loved every part of it. She had a table where she could sit, a blanket that stayed warm, and a window where she could watch the street lights glow at night. She worked part-time at the community center kitchen. She also volunteered at the community garage and kitchen on her days off. The two places became part of her new life, like two steady hands holding her up. Helen was still close, always checking on her, always bringing groceries or calling just to ask how the day went. Sometimes they cooked together and talked about simple things. Sometimes they sat quietly, letting silence feel safe instead of lonely. Ron and the garage crew remained her second family. They did not talk about feelings too much, but they showed care through action. They fixed broken things. They lifted heavy boxes. They made room at the table for anyone who needed it. As Christmas Eve arrived again, the garage was busier than usual. People had donated more food, more blankets, and more coats. Several volunteers came early. The large pots of soup boiled gently. Bread was stacked high. Hot tea filled thermoses. Mara tied an apron around her waist and looked around the room. For a second, she remembered herself from last year. Thin coat. Cold hands. Hungry eyes. She took a slow breath and focused on the present. Lena entered the room carrying a list. "We're going out tonight," she said. "Same street corners as last year. We do not wait for people to find us. We go to them." Ron walked in behind her, holding a box of containers. "We roll out in an hour," he said. Mara's heart beat faster. She knew what street corner he meant. She knew the bakery. She knew the curb where she had sat. Helen arrived soon after, carrying a bag of warm scarves. She hugged Mara and smiled. "Ready?" she asked. Mara nodded. More than ready. When the time came, motorcycles and a van lined up outside the garage. The riders wore their jackets, but their hands carried food and blankets. The engines started, one after another, filling the air with a strong sound. It was loud, but it was not threatening. It sounded like movement. It sounded like help arriving. They drove through the city streets, passing decorated windows and families inside warm homes. Some people on sidewalks stared at the line of bikes. A few looked nervous at first, then confused when they saw volunteers holding supplies instead of acting rough. When they reached the quiet side street near the bakery, Mara's stomach tightened. The bakery shutter looked the same. The sign still hung on the door. The holiday lights above still blinked. But Mara was not the same. Ron parked his motorcycle and cut the engine. The others parked near him. The van stopped behind them. Lena opened the back doors and began passing out containers. Volunteers moved quickly, setting up a small table, laying out food, pouring tea, and preparing blankets. A few people appeared from the shadows, cautious and silent. Mara recognized the look in their eyes. The look that asked, "Is this real?" She approached a man standing near the wall. His clothes were worn. His shoulders were tense. He watched the group like he expected them to disappear. Mara held out a container of soup and a piece of bread. "It's warm," she said gently. "You can take it." The man hesitated. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. Mara answered without thinking. "Because I know what this night feels like." He studied her face. Then he accepted the food. Mara moved to the next person, a young woman sitting on the curb. The woman's hair was messy, and she hugged her knees like she was trying to shrink into herself. Mara knelt down, keeping her voice soft. "Hi," she said. "I'm Mara." The young woman looked up slowly. "I'm Nia," she whispered. Mara offered her a blanket first, then food. "It's okay," she said. "No one here wants to hurt you." Nia's eyes filled with tears, but she did not speak. She took the blanket and wrapped it around her shoulders. Ron watched Mara from a short distance. He said nothing, but his expression showed quiet respect. Helen handed out scarves, moving down the line of people. She looked at Mara and gave a small nod, like she was proud without needing to say it. The street, once silent and empty, now carried the sounds of simple life. Lids opening. Soup being sipped. Quiet thanks. Soft conversation. A man in the group asked Ron, "Why do you keep doing this every year?" Ron adjusted the box in his arms. "Because people deserve a chance," he said. Mara heard that and felt a strong wave of emotion rise inside her. She swallowed it and kept working. She had learned something important this year. Feelings were not weakness. They were proof that she was alive. As the night continued, more people came. Some were shy, standing far away. Some walked up slowly, hands raised a little, as if asking permission to be helped. The volunteers treated everyone the same. No judgment. No harsh words. Only warmth. Near midnight, the supplies began to run low. The crowd slowly dispersed, wrapped in blankets and holding food. Some walked away with small smiles. Others stayed quiet, but their shoulders looked less tense. Mara stood near the bakery and looked at the spot where she had sat last year. She remembered the hunger, the fear, the empty feeling. Then she looked at her hands now, holding a thermos of tea and a bag of gloves to give away. She was on the other side of the moment. Ron walked up beside her. "You okay?" he asked. Mara nodded. "I'm thinking." Ron waited. Mara spoke softly. "Last year, you gave me food here. I thought you were just being kind. I didn't understand the size of what you did." Ron exhaled slowly. "I just stopped my bike." Mara looked at him. "You stopped time from running out for me." Ron's eyes shifted away, uncomfortable with the weight of the words. "You did the hard part," he said. "You came back. You kept showing up." Mara smiled, small but real. "And now I get to stop for someone else." Ron nodded once. "That's the point." The group packed up and prepared to leave. Engines started again. The street filled with sound, then the sound moved away. Mara climbed into the van beside Helen, holding the empty containers and folded tablecloths. As they drove back toward the garage, she watched the city lights pass by. Christmas Eve was still cold. Life was still hard for many. But Mara had learned that one small act, done at the right moment, could start a chain that changed everything. A meal could become a doorway. A card could become a path. And a person who once sat hungry on a curb could one day kneel beside someone else and say, in a calm voice, that it was okay. Because now, she truly meant it.